Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm gonna be talking about peer pressure that I have personally experienced. So, some good peer pressure um would have been when I was I had just quit my recent job and I was working at a child care center, and I had I I left there in May, and it took me about a month to find the job, but I was struggling on what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go about finding a new career path. And as I was trying to decide, I had my boyfriend at the time was talking to me about, well, what would you want to do? And I said, childcare. I loved working with kids and all of that. And so he pressured me into going on a job website and finding some childcare jobs that maybe I had an interest in. And at first I was like, like, do I want to, or am I just gonna get burnt out and overwhelmed? Like, am I gonna go through the same thing that I went through at my last job? And he was like, you've got this, like, you can do it. And so I was like putting all my faith into him, and I was like, you know what? I guess I'll just do it. So I submitted an application to a job, a childcare center, and the next day they emailed me back wanting me to come in for an interview. And so I was like super stoked. I went in for the interview and they hired me on the spot. And I was super excited, and I wouldn't have gotten the job if it wasn't for him pressuring me into going into this job, which I am so grateful for. And I am still currently working at this job. And it has been a breeze, and it hasn't been as stressful, so I'm super thankful for that. And so that was like a good peer pressure. And then a not so good peer pressure was in April of 2021. I was hanging around a group of friends who weren't the best influence, and they were drinking and vaping and all of the stuff like a teenager should stay away from. And I wasn't having any of that, and then there was one night, and I had a few drinks with them, and one of them was like, here, try my vape. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I had told myself all these years growing up, I'm never gonna do that, never gonna touch one of those. And I did. I ended up trying it, and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. And now I've been stuck with that addiction for coming on 3 years. So it was a very bad peer pressure, and if I could go back and change that, I would. I would change who I was hanging out with. I would change everything. I would go find new friends. And luckily I'm not hanging out with those guys anymore, but I would change who I was hanging out with. I would change my mindset at the time. I would change my morals and my priorities. And after I had did that, I felt very ashamed of myself. I felt like I had just ruined my whole body, my everything, and in a way I did. And so it was very hard for me, and it was very hard keeping it a secret once I got addicted to it. And I had to hide it from my parents, and I hid it from my siblings and like everybody else who I was around. And so it made it worse. It made it to where I kind of like trapped myself into my own bubble and wouldn't go about hanging out with anybody. I would leave family functions early, and then I ended up telling them and they found out, and I ended up getting my brother addicted to the nicotine, and that makes me feel like terrible because you never ever want to be the reason why somebody now is struggling with an addiction. And so it's very hard. And personally, I am on the recovery path of trying to quit and end it, and it's hard mentally and physically. It is exhausting, but I'd like to say that I am making progress. But back to the job. So once I got hired on and I started working there, I felt so refreshed and relieved that I had finally found a job where I was accepted and I was treated like I was there. And I was a person of of equality, and nobody was above me, nobody was below me. Like, we were all on the same level, which felt amazing. And I mean, it was a struggle at first because I was like, oh, new people, like, I don't know. Like, I got into this job because my boyfriend told me I should go for it. And now I am their manager. I'm the youngest one working for them, and I am a manager. And so it's like really rewarding and exciting that I get to experience all of that. And yeah, so peer pressure is definitely something that can either go good or bad. And I'd like to say that there is more good peer pressure out in the world, but no. There is a lot of negative peer pressure that is happening all around us every day, every second. And it is super hard to be a part of society where pressuring somebody into something that they don't want to do is the norm. I mean, we have people pressuring people on this side of the road and this side of the road across from us and behind us. And it's very, very difficult and hard. So it's definitely something everybody needs to work on. And again, with the job, there is nothing I would go back and change about getting pressured into it. Maybe I would change being more willing and like wanting to take that step. And I did. But maybe if I was just a little more enthusiastic, if you want to say. But yeah, so I was peer pressured into going into a new job, which I'm so grateful for again. And then I was peer pressured into an addictive substance. So, but I mean, we're all human. We all experience different triumphs and bumps, but yeah. So that was my explanation on peer pressure and what all I had gone through. What was the good peer pressure? What was the bad peer pressure? Like, all of that jazz. But it's definitely been a struggle bus, but we're getting through it. So thank you so much.